Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Miss Marvel deserves a season 2. First of all, quick shout out to you guys. Thank you for 1,000 subscribers. That's absolutely awesome. But without out of the way, let's get into Miss Marvel. So, this is maybe a video that a few of you weren't expecting me to make. If you saw my community post regarding Miss Marvel, then maybe you did see this coming. But essentially, I think Miss Marvel deserves a second season. Now, the first season wasn't very well received. It was kind of in that era of the MCU where they were literally just throwing anything at the wall and hoping it would stick. It was around the time that we were getting WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, we were getting Miss Marvel itself, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, all of these MCU shows along with the movies like Eternals, Black Widow, loads of different things, and the quality of the MCU had subsequently dropped. And Miss Marvel, unfortunately, was a byproduct of that quality drop. However, I believe Miss Marvel is actually one of the best modern day comic book characters, and I think she deserves so much better than what she actually got in season 1, and I would even say she is probably the most deserving character, maybe other than Loki, to get a second season in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm going to tell you why. Now first, I just want to say that if you have only watched the Miss Marvel show and the Marvels potentially, and you haven't read the comics, then you might not know too much about Miss Marvel and maybe sitting there thinking, Lewis, why does she deserve a season 2? Her show wasn't that great. The Marvels was a little bit mediocre. Why should she of anyone deserve a second season? And that's because if you have read the comics, and I'm sure a few of you have, then you will know that Miss Marvel has so much untapped potential. In modern comic book media, Miss Marvel is the Peter Parker of the new wave of comic book characters. Coming through the early 2000s and up to the 2010s, Marvel and DC both alike decided that they need to start writing new and fresh characters to appeal to new and wider audiences. A massive part of this new push for new characters to appeal to wider audiences was of course inclusivity and diversity. A lot of cultures and ethnicities were severely underrepresented before this massive character boom, and that was a massive leading factor for them creating all of these new characters. Now, as you could imagine, with creating so many new characters, some of them landed, but most of them didn't land. The issue that a lot of them had was that a lot of them weren't very interesting, a lot of them didn't have good character writing, a lot of them just didn't stick. And to be fair, in a modern age where we already have so many superheroes and so many superhero tropes have been used and overused countless times, it's not a surprise that it's harder nowadays to create a very interesting comic book character or do something that hasn't been done similarly before. However, Miss Marvel was the exception to this, because as soon as she was introduced, she was beloved across the board by all types of fans. Not just the younger audiences, but she was appreciated by all types of fans, including the older ones, people who have been fans of comic books for years, and she really did hit the landing. Now, what was so special about Miss Marvel that wasn't about any of the other characters? Well, she usually gets compared to Peter Parker. She is usually labeled as the modern day Spider-Man. Now, what do people mean by that? Well, the thing is, she actually has good characters and good supporting characters in her book as well. The book is centered around Miss Marvel, or Kamala Khan, trying to decipher who she wants to be. And obviously her religion and her culture is a massive player in this story as well. Growing up, she wanted to be an Avenger. She wanted to be Captain Marvel specifically. She also has to deal with the fact that she comes from a very strict family as well. And of course, this ties heavily into her story and wanting to be something more, something different, something like Captain Marvel. Because obviously she comes from this background growing up in America surrounded by other cultures and other traditions. And it's a brilliant story because all of the side characters have a purpose. They all bounce off Kamala and add to the overall story and character arc that she ends up going through. She eventually learns that she can be a superhero, but she has to be herself. It's sort of a self-acceptance story, and it's really beautiful and it's really well written. But not only that, like I mentioned, the supporting characters are also really well written as well. Everything is believable. Everything has heart, and it feels like it was created with the utmost honesty. Also, the fact that Miss Marvel isn't set in New York makes this comic 10 times better. As we know, New Jersey is right next to New York on the map, and because she lives in New Jersey, obviously she's looking up to Captain Marvel and looking up to the Avengers, which of course, most of the time, always reside in New York. So it's almost like she's looking across. She's looking across to New York thinking, I want that. I want to be bigger and better. When really she has to embrace and be proud that she's an American Muslim New Jersey superhero, not New York. So the location of a character matters as well, and it's sort of every little detail about the story all plays into her overall character in some way, shape, or form. And it's just really well written. And her character and her story has got so much potential, some that I think wasn't tapped upon in her actual show. As I mentioned at the start of the video, the Miss Marvel show was unfortunately a byproduct of the MCU's decline. The MCU was stretching their resources thin, they were trying to meet unrealistic deadlines for an unrealistic amount of shows and movies, and Miss Marvel unfortunately suffered. Despite how creatively in tune it was with her comic from start to end visually, I never felt like the story landed as much as it possibly could. It did tap into some of these themes, and it did it really well in places, but overall, the dialogue was maybe a little bit choppy, some exposition was a little bit unnecessary, and just generally, it sort of felt like it could have been paved over and been a lot more smoother if the show had a lot more time to work with. And this is why I think Miss Marvel definitely deserves a season 2, because there is a huge untapped potential for this character to have one of the best films, or maybe even one of the best season 2s of any superhero ever created. And I genuinely mean that. I think a film of Miss Marvel or a future show of Miss Marvel in the MCU could genuinely be one of the best superhero things we have ever seen, and there is so much untapped potential. Her comic book is great, and it's one of the best modern comic books of the 21st century. A lot of people turn their nose up at new characters that are created in comics nowadays, because, like I mentioned at the start of the video, most of them don't land. Most of them reuse ideas and recycle ideas that we've seen a million times. For example, you know, Batman has his parents killed, Peter Parker has, you know, his parents killed and his uncle killed. You know, everyone has their parents killed. It's a trope that has been overused for almost a century now. And when a new superhero does something like that, it's like, oh yeah, whatever, right? No one really cares anymore. But Miss Marvel was the exception to this because she managed to do something new, fresh, relevant, and it also tied into a culture really well as well. And the story overall was just great. So I do 100% recommend you go check out the Miss Marvel comics if you have not already. They are absolutely awesome. And I think she definitely deserves a season 2 and possibly even a season 3. Heck, she even deserves her own film. I know she was in the Marvels, but she deserves a solo film, man. I'm just going to put it out there. But either way, thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you like Miss Marvel as a character? Have you read her comics? If you have, let me know what you think about them. Also, do you think she deserves a season 2? If she does, how would you write it? I've got so many questions for you. Let's get a conversation going in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, here are some more comic book videos that you may enjoy. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care and peace.